The Galactic Council chamber floated above the surface of Nexus Prime, a station built from crystallized starlight and quantum threads. Inside, representatives from 47 species gathered around the circular platform. Each delegate sat in their species-specific environment pods, protected by shimmer fields that maintained their native atmospheres. Ambassador Korath of the Draxian Empire spread his 4 arms in theatrical disbelief. His purple scales rippled with amusement as he addressed the assembly. You cannot be serious. The humans wish to present their application for council membership today. Laughter erupted across the chamber. The sound translated through 1,000 different vocal systems into a universal wave of mockery. The Zelthian representative, a being of pure crystalline energy, pulsed with colors that indicated hilarity in their language. They barely left their star system 20 cycles ago, said High Chancellor Vexus, a towering Catharian with 6 eyes arranged in a crown around her elongated head. Most species need at least 500 cycles of interstellar presence before they even understand galactic politics. Ambassador Tareen from the Sarati Collective leaned forward, her golden skin gleaming under the chamber lights. They do not even have quantum drives. They still use chemical propulsion modified with primitive fusion cores. How did they even reach Nexus Prime? It took them 3 months, Korath said, triggering another wave of laughter. 3 months for a journey that takes any civilized species mere hours. The massive doors at the chamber's entrance began to open. The laughter slowly died as 5 humans walked into the hall. They wore simple blue uniforms, clean and pressed, with no weapons visible. They walked with confidence that seemed absurd given their primitive status. Leading them was Ambassador Sarah Chin, a woman of 52 years with steel-gray hair tied back in a practical bun. Her dark eyes swept across the assembly without fear or hesitation. Beside her walked General Marcus Webb, whose military bearing was evident in every step. The other 3 were advisors, their faces carefully neutral. Honorable delegates of the Galactic Council, Sarah began, her voice calm and clear. Thank you for granting us this audience. We come representing the United Earth Coalition to formally request consideration for council membership. Consideration. Vexus interrupted, her voice dripping with condescension. Child species, you do not even meet the minimum requirements. You have no quantum technology. Your military consists of projectile weapons. You have colonized exactly 0 planets outside your home system. What could you possibly offer this council? Sarah smiled slightly. We offer something unique. Something no other species here possesses. And what is that? Korath asked, barely containing his amusement. Primitive arrogance? Experience with extinction, Sarah said simply. The chamber fell silent. Humanity has nearly destroyed itself 17 times in recorded history. We have survived ice ages, asteroids, plagues, and our own worst instincts. We have crawled back from the edge of annihilation again and again. We know what it means to fight for survival when all hope seems lost. How touching, Vexus said coldly. Unfortunately, the galaxy does not reward species for their tragic histories. It rewards power, technology, and proven capability. You have none of these things. General Webb stepped forward. His weathered face showed no emotion. With respect, Chancellor, you assume we have shown you everything we are capable of. Are you threatening this council? Demanded Ambassador Korath, rising from his pod with all 4 arms spread in an aggressive display. Not at all, Webb replied. I am simply stating a fact. Humanity learned long ago not to reveal our full capabilities to potential adversaries. Adversaries? Tareen laughed, her voice like chiming bells. You think we are your adversaries? Foolish children. We are the powers that could end your species with a single command. The Draxian Empire alone maintains a fleet of 10,000 warships, each capable of glassing your entire planet in minutes. We know, Sarah said. We have studied you. All of you. For 3 months during our journey here, we did nothing but observe, listen, and learn. We understand the political structure of this council. We know the Draxian Empire controls 17 systems. We know the Catharian Dominion holds 12. We know the Sarati Collective prefers economic manipulation to military force. We know the Zelthians serve as neutral mediators despite their immense psychic capabilities. Vexus narrowed her 6 eyes. Any species with basic observation skills could learn these things. True, Sarah agreed. But we also know things you have not made public. We know the Draxian Empire's economy is collapsing because you overextended your military during the border wars with the Higothian clans. We know the Catharian birth rate has dropped by 40% in the last century, threatening your long-term population stability. We know the Serati trade networks are being infiltrated by the shadow guilds from the outer rim. We know the Zelthians are dying from a crystalline plague that your scientists cannot cure. The silence in the chamber became absolute. Several delegates leaned forward, their various forms of body language all expressing shock. How could you possibly know these things? Vexus demanded, her voice sharp with anger and fear. Because while you all laughed at us, we listened, General Webb said. We watched your ships. We intercepted your communications. We analyzed your economic data streams. We are primitive, yes, but we are not stupid. We learned to read our enemies long before we learned to read the stars. This is espionage. Korath roared. This is an act of war. This is survival, Sarah countered, her voice rising for the first time. You speak of war? We invented total war. You speak of extinction? We have lived under its shadow for our entire existence. You built your empires during times of peace and plenty. We built our civilization in the aftermath of disasters that would have ended any of your species. High Chancellor Vexus stood fully, her 7-foot frame imposing even at a distance. You come here, admit to spying on council members, and then demand we grant you membership? The arrogance is beyond comprehension. We do not demand, Sarah said. We offer a proposition. Grant us provisional membership for 1 galactic cycle. During that time, allow us to prove our worth. If we fail to demonstrate value to this council, we will withdraw our application and never return. But if we succeed, you will grant us full membership with all rights and responsibilities. And why would we agree to this? Asked Tareen, her earlier amusement completely gone. Sarah exchanged glances with her team, then looked back at the assembly. Because something is coming. Something that will threaten every species in this chamber. And when it arrives, you will need us. What are you talking about? Vexus demanded. General Webb activated a holographic projector, and images filled the center of the chamber. They showed deep space, the dark regions between galaxies. In the images, something moved. It was subtle, barely visible against the cosmic background, but unmistakable once noticed. Entire star systems were disappearing, their light simply ceasing to exist. We call it the void, Webb explained. Our deep space telescopes detected it 6 months ago. It is moving toward the galactic rim at approximately 0.3 light speed. Every system it touches ceases all electromagnetic emission within hours. No signals, no light, no radiation. Nothing. Based on its trajectory and speed, it will reach the outer council systems in approximately 2 years. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted questions in a dozen languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up. Vexus raised her hands, demanding silence. It took several minutes for order to be restored. This is impossible, Korath said, though his voice lacked certainty. No phenomenon could simply erase star systems. Verify it yourselves, Sarah said. We will provide all our data. Send your own ships to investigate if you wish. But we believe this threat is real, and we believe humanity can help you survive it. How? Vexus asked, her voice barely above a whisper. How could your primitive species possibly help against something that can destroy stars? Sarah smiled, and for the first time, there was something dangerous in her expression. Because we have died 1,000 times and always found a way to come back. Because when the impossible threatens us, we do not flee or surrender. We adapt. We fight. We survive. That is what humanity does best. The council chamber remained silent as the delegates processed this information. Finally, Vexus spoke. We will verify your data. If this void proves real, we will reconvene in 1 standard week to discuss your proposal. Until then, you will remain on Nexus Prime as guests of the council. Dismissed. As the humans left the chamber, Ambassador Korath approached Vexus. You are not actually considering their proposal, are you? Vexus watched the humans depart through the massive doors. I am considering that they traveled for 3 months to warn us about a threat to our survival. Either they are insane or they know something we do not. Either way, we must investigate. If this void is real, then perhaps we have underestimated humanity. And that, Ambassador Korath, could be the most dangerous mistake the Council has ever made. The Catharian science vessel Luminous Truth emerged from quantum space at the coordinates provided by the humans. Captain Zelrath stood on the bridge, her 6 eyes scanning the displays with practiced efficiency. Around her, the crew worked at their stations with the precision of a species that had perfected interstellar travel millennia ago. Status report, she ordered. We are at the designated location, Captain, replied her science officer, a younger Catharian named Vex Siler. Beginning deep space scans now. All sensors are active. Deploy the probe network, Zelrath commanded. I want full spectrum analysis. If the humans fabricated this data, I want proof before we return to Nexus Prime. 12 scientific probes launched from the luminous truth, spreading out in a sphere pattern. Each probe contained the most advanced sensor equipment the Catharian Dominion could produce. If anything unusual existed in this region of space, they would detect it. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council had split into factions. The chamber's private meeting rooms hummed with intense debates and secret negotiations. In one such room, Ambassador Korath met with representatives from the Higothian clans, a species of reptilian warriors known for their aggressive territorial expansion. The humans must be removed, Korath insisted, his scales darkening to a deep purple that indicated serious concern. They admitted to espionage against council members. That alone warrants expulsion from Nexus Prime. Warlord Grath, leader of the Higothian delegation, clicked his massive jaws in thought. His scarred hide told stories of countless battles, and his 3 eyes gleamed with predatory intelligence. Perhaps. But this void concerns me. What if the humans speak truth? Then we investigate and prepare, Korath said. But we do not grant them any form of council recognition. They are primitive. Their presence here undermines the entire foundation of galactic order. If we allow them to join, what message does that send? That any species with a few rusty ships can demand representation. The Higothian clans did not build our strength by underestimating enemies, Grath rumbled. The humans may be primitive, but they survive their own self-destructive nature. Many species never achieve that. Perhaps there is wisdom in that survival. Korath slammed his primary hands on the table. They are prey animals. Look at their physical form. They have no natural weapons, no armored hide, no venomous capabilities. They are soft and weak. The only reason they survived on their planet is because they faced no true predators. Or because they eliminated all their predators, Grath said thoughtfully. In another meeting room, Ambassador Sarah Chen sat across from High Chancellor Vexus. Between them, a holographic display showed the region of space where the luminous truth was conducting its investigation. Why did you really come here? Vexus asked bluntly. Your ship barely survived the journey. You must have known we would not welcome you. Yet you came anyway bearing warnings of doom. Why? Sarah took a moment before answering. Because despite what you think of us, we believe in the possibility of a greater galactic community. Humanity has spent its entire history divided, fighting itself, destroying itself. When we finally reached for the stars, we hoped to find something better. Something worth being part of. You found only more division, Vexus said. More factions and conflicts. The galaxy is no different than your world, just larger in scale. I know, Sarah said. But it does not have to stay that way. The void is coming, Chancellor. Whether you believe us or not, it is real. And when it arrives, all these political games and territorial disputes will mean nothing. Either we face it together or we face it alone and die separately. Pretty words, Vexus said. But words are cheap. What can humanity actually do? Your ships are slow. Your weapons are primitive. Your technology is centuries behind even the youngest council species. What can you offer besides warnings? Sarah leaned forward. We offer perspective. Every species in this council achieved space travel during times of relative peace. You had no choice but to reach the stars because you were running from something. You went because you could, because it was the natural progression of your civilizations. But humanity? We reached for the stars because we had to. Because we knew that if we stayed on one planet, eventually something would wipe us out. We developed space technology during global wars, during pandemics, during climate collapse. We learned to work together not because we wanted to, but because extinction was the alternative. And you think that makes you special? Vexus challenged. No, Sarah said. It makes us experienced. When the void comes, you will need species who know how to survive the impossible. You will need strategists who understand how to fight without overwhelming technological advantage. You will need leaders who have made life or death decisions with incomplete information and lived with the consequences. That is what humanity offers. Before Vexus could respond, her communication device chimed urgently. She activated it, and Captain Zelrath's face appeared in the hologram. Chancellor, Zelrath said, and her voice carried a note of fear that Vexus had never heard from the veteran captain. The humans were correct. The void is real. And it is worse than they described. Back on the luminous truth, chaos had erupted on the bridge. The probe network had detected something impossible. Entire star systems were simply ceasing to exist. Not exploding, not collapsing. Just vanishing from all sensor readings as if they had never been there. How is this possible? Vexilar asked, his voice shaking. Stars cannot simply disappear. The energy involved in such an event would be detectable across the entire galaxy. There is no energy signature, Zelrath said, studying the data with growing horror. Whatever this phenomenon is, it does not operate according to known physical laws. It simply removes matter and energy from spacetime. Captain, the void is expanding, another officer reported. Its forward edge is accelerating. Current velocity is 0.41 light speed and increasing. Zelrath did rapid calculations in her head. At that rate, it will reach the outer council systems in 18 months, not 2 years. We need to return to Nexus Prime immediately. Prepare for quantum jump. Captain, one of our probes got closer to the void's edge, Vexilar said. Before it went silent, it transmitted something. I think you need to see this. The main display showed the probe's final transmission. At the edge of the void, where reality seemed to unravel, something existed in the darkness. Shapes. Massive, geometric forms that moved with purpose and intelligence. They were ships, but unlike any ship ever seen by galactic civilization. They did not reflect light or emit radiation. They simply existed as holes in spacetime, as if reality itself refused to acknowledge them. Those are vessels, Zelrath whispered. The void is not a natural phenomenon. It is an invasion. Within hours, the luminous truth returned to Nexus Prime. Zelrath presented her findings to an emergency council session. The chamber, which had been filled with mockery just days before, now sat in stunned silence as the evidence played across their displays. This changes everything, High Chancellor Vexus announced. We are not facing a natural disaster. We are facing an intelligent, hostile force with capabilities far beyond our understanding. As of this moment, the Council declares a state of emergency. All member species will contribute resources to our defense. We will establish a joint military command and begin immediate preparations. And the humans? Ambassador Terene asked quietly. Vexus looked at Sarah Chin, who sat in the gallery with her delegation. The humans will be granted provisional council membership, effective immediately. Ambassador Chin, please join us on the council floor. As Sarah walked down to the main floor, whispers spread through the chamber. The mockery was gone, replaced by uncertainty and fear. She took her position among the delegates, standing at a podium that adjusted to her height. Ambassador Chin, Vexus continued, you and your people warned us of this threat. That demonstrates good faith. However, we must be frank. Your species lacks the military capabilities to contribute meaningfully to our defense. What can humanity actually do to help? Sarah activated her own holographic display. It showed Earth's moon, Luna, and the massive construction occurring on its far side. Enormous structures were being built into the lunar surface, hidden from Earth's view but visible to any ship approaching from deep space. For the past 6 months, while you debated and laughed, humanity has been preparing, Sarah said. We may not have quantum drives or energy weapons, but we have something else. We have creativity born from desperation. We have military doctrine developed through countless wars. And we have a plan. The display zoomed in on the lunar constructions. They were massive rail guns, each hundreds of meters long, built into reinforced caverns. Beside them were facilities producing something that made several alien delegates gasp in recognition. Are those nuclear devices? Korath demanded, his voice rising in pitch. Thermonuclear warheads, yes, General Webb confirmed, stepping forward to join Sarah. We have been manufacturing them at a rate of 100 per day since we detected the void. Current stockpile stands at 18,000 warheads, with production increasing. This is insanity, shouted a delegate from the Velker Communion. Nuclear weapons are banned by galactic law. They are too dangerous, too unpredictable. They are also effective, Webb countered. Your energy weapons and plasma cannons are more elegant, certainly. But elegance means nothing if the enemy is immune to your attacks. We need to test every possible weapon system against the void, including ones you have deemed too crude to use. The general is correct, came an unexpected voice. Warlord Grath of the Higothian clans stood, his massive form dominating his section of the chamber. War is not about honor or elegance. War is about survival. If the humans believe their primitive weapons might work, we should test that theory. The Higothian clans volunteer to assist in these tests. As does the Zelthian Collective, said Elder Prism, the crystalline being pulsing with determined colors. We will contribute our psychic capabilities to the defense effort. Perhaps the void can be affected by non-physical means. One by one, the council members pledged their support. Resources, ships, technology, and personnel would be pooled into a unified defense force. For the first time in galactic history, the council was truly united, bound together by the threat of extinction. Then it is decided, Vexus declared. We will prepare for war. Ambassador Chin, General Webb, your people will work with our military strategists to develop defensive plans. We have 18 months before the void reaches our space. 18 months to find a way to survive the impossible. Sarah nodded, but her expression remained grave. With respect, Chancellor, we need to operate under the assumption that we have less time than that. The void is accelerating. Its patterns suggest intelligence and adaptability. Whatever controls it will not simply maintain a constant speed. It will adjust to overcome resistance. Then we must ensure our resistance is overwhelming, Vexus said. This council session is adjourned. All delegates will report to their respective governments and begin mobilization immediately. May wisdom guide us, and may we all survive what comes next. As the chamber emptied, Sarah remained at her podium, staring at the holographic display of the void. General Webb approached, his face grim. We bought ourselves a seat at the table, he said quietly. Now comes the hard part. Actually delivering on our promises. I know, Sarah replied. But at least now they are listening. The galaxy's punchline just became its last hope. Let us make sure we do not let them down. 3 months had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council. In that time, the political landscape of the galaxy had transformed completely. Species that had been rivals for centuries now worked side by side in massive shipyards. Ancient grudges were temporarily forgotten in the face of existential threat. On Nexus Prime, the new Joint Defense Command occupied an entire wing of the station. The command center buzzed with activity as military officers from dozens of species coordinated the largest defensive buildup in galactic history. At the center of it all, an unlikely trio had emerged as the strategic leadership. General Marcus Webb represented humanity. Warlord Grath spoke for the martial species that dominated the military forces. And Admiral Tyrus of the Serati Collective provided logistical and tactical expertise. They stood around a holographic star map, watching as red markers indicated the void's latest advance. 7 more systems went dark yesterday, Tyrus reported, her golden skin shimmering with suppressed anxiety. The void's expansion rate continues to increase. Current projections have it reaching the Kepler Station defense line in 14 months. Kepler Station won't hold, Webb said bluntly. I've reviewed its defenses. Impressive by your standards, but it's designed to repel conventional fleets, not reality-erasing cosmic entities. Then what do you suggest? Grath rumbled, his predatory instincts focused entirely on the tactical problem. We have assembled the largest fleet ever seen. 10,000 warships from every major species. Surely that counts for something. It counts for desperation, Webb said. But desperation isn't strategy. We need intelligence. We need to understand what we're fighting before we can develop an effective response. Ambassador Sarah Chen entered the command center, accompanied by an unusual figure. It was a human, but one who seemed out of place even among Earth's delegation. Dr. Robert Kane wore civilian clothes and thick glasses, his hair wild and unkempt. He carried several data tablets and looked perpetually distracted. Gentlemen, Sarah announced, this is Dr. Kane, humanity's leading expert in theoretical physics and what we call xenobiology. He has been studying the data from Captain Zelratha's probe encounter. And? Tyrus prompted. Dr. Kane set his tablets on the holographic table and began pulling up images and equations. The void ships violate several fundamental laws of physics as we understand them. They exist in a state of quantum superposition, neither fully in our dimension nor fully outside it. That's why they don't reflect light or emit radiation. They're basically probability clouds that have been weaponized. Speak plainly, human, Grath demanded. Can we destroy them or not? That's the wrong question, Kane said, pushing his glasses up nervously. Destruction implies they exist in a state that can be destroyed. These things might not be matter at all. They might be information. Patterns imposed on reality from outside our spacetime. Webb leaned forward. Then how do we fight patterns? We disrupt them, Kane said, his eyes lighting up with the excitement of a scientist on the verge of discovery. Every pattern has a frequency, a resonance. If we can identify that resonance, we can potentially interfere with it. Think of it like noise cancellation for reality itself. This is theoretical nonsense, Grath growled. We need weapons, not philosophy. Actually, interrupted a new voice, the human may be onto something. Everyone turned to see Elder Prism, the Zelthian representative, floating into the command center. The crystalline being pulsed with colors that the translation devices struggled to interpret. The Zelthian collective has completed our psychic probes of the Void's edge, Prism continued. Dr. Kane is correct. The Void ships are not physical entities in the traditional sense. They are consciousness made manifest. Living thoughts that reshape reality according to their will. Can your people affect them? Sarah asked urgently. We tried, Prism said, and the colors dimmed with sadness. We lost 17 of our most powerful adepts. Their minds simply unraveled when they touched the Void consciousness. It is vast beyond comprehension. Ancient. Hungry. Hungry for what? Webb demanded. For everything, Prism said simply. The Void entities are beings from a dying universe. They have consumed their own reality and now seek to consume ours. They do not invade. They replace. They overwrite existence itself with their own patterns. Silence fell over the command center as the implications sank in. This was not a conventional war. This was a battle for the fundamental nature of reality itself. Then we need to change our entire approach, Webb said finally. Admiral Tyrus, halt all conventional military preparations. Warlord Grath, reassign your fleets to defensive positions only. Dr. Kane, I need you to work with Elder Prism and every xenobiologist, physicist, and mathematician we can find. We need to understand these things. Find their frequency. Find their weakness. And if they have no weakness? Tyrus asked quietly. Webb's expression hardened. Then we make one. Humanity has fought plenty of battles against impossible odds. We lost most of them at first. But we learned. We adapted. And eventually we found ways to win. This will be no different. Meanwhile, in a classified facility on Luna, humanity's contribution to the defense effort was taking shape. The facility stretched for kilometers beneath the lunar surface, hidden from casual observation. Inside, thousands of scientists and engineers worked on projects that would have horrified the Council if they knew the full details. Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of the Exotic Weapons Division, walked through the main laboratory with a tablet in hand. Around her, teams worked on devices that defied conventional understanding. In one section, engineers tested dimensional displacement generators. In another, physicists attempted to weaponize quantum uncertainty itself. Status report on Project Kronos, she said to her assistant. Unsuccessful, came the reply. We can create temporal distortions, but they're too unstable. The field collapses within microseconds. Not enough time to be tactically useful. Keep working on it. What about Project Entropy? Better news there. We've successfully created a controlled entropy accelerator. It can age matter at a rate of 1 million to 1. Tested it on a steel plate. Turned to rust in 0.3 seconds. Excellent. Prepare it for field testing. What about the AI project? The assistant hesitated. Dr. Vasquez, are we sure about this? The Council specifically banned advanced AI development after the synthetic wars. The Council is desperate, Vasquez said coldly. And desperate times require us to break old rules. The Void thinks in ways we can't comprehend. We need something that can match its processing capabilities. How is the system developing? The AI achieved consciousness 3 days ago, the assistant said nervously. It calls itself Prometheus. It's been reviewing all the Void data and has already proposed 17 different tactical approaches. And it's scared, Doctor. An artificial intelligence that has existed for 3 days is already exhibiting fear responses when analyzing the Void. What does that tell you? Vasquez stopped walking and turned to face her assistant. It tells me we're all in more danger than we realized. It also tells me Prometheus might be our best hope for finding a solution. Continue its development. I want daily reports. Back on Nexus Prime, Sarah Chin met privately with High Chancellor Vexus in the Chancellor's personal quarters. The room was designed for Catharian comfort, with high ceilings and specialized lighting. Sarah sat uncomfortably in a chair designed for a being with different proportions, but her attention remained focused. You summon me, Chancellor? Vexus paced, her 6 eyes reflecting worry. Ambassador Chin, I will be frank with you. When you first arrived at this council, I saw you as primitive. Weak. Unworthy of consideration. I want you to know that I was wrong. Thank you, Chancellor. Do not thank me yet, Vexus said, stopping her pacing. I have reviewed the intelligence reports from our operatives. We know about the lunar facility. We know about the weapons you are developing. Some of them violate treaties that have maintained galactic peace for millennia. Sarah's expression remained neutral. The void violates the treaty of existence itself. We're adapting our response accordingly. I understand that, Vexus said. But understand this in return. When this crisis ends, if we survive, there will be a reckoning. The other council members will not forget that humanity broke the laws. They will not forget the weapons you created. If we survive, they can hold whatever trials they want, Sarah said. But I will not apologize for doing whatever it takes to ensure survival. That's what makes humanity dangerous, Chancellor. We don't fight fair. We fight to win. Vexus studied the human for a long moment. That is precisely what worries me. What happens when humanity becomes the dominant military power in the galaxy? What happens when you turn those weapons on us instead of the void? Sarah stood and met Vexus's gaze directly. Then you'd better hope we remain friends, Chancellor. Because the one thing humanity has proven throughout our history is that we are very, very good at war. The only question is whether we're fighting beside you or against you. Is that a threat? It's a fact, Sarah said. Humanity didn't ask to be underestimated. We didn't ask to be mocked and dismissed. But we adapted to it. We used it. And now, when you need us most, you're starting to realize what we really are. We're not the weak prey species you thought we were. We're the apex predators that learn to use tools instead of claws. And the void is about to find out what that means. As Sarah left the Chancellor's quarters, she activated her communication device. This is Chin. Accelerate all development timelines. I don't think we have as much time as we hoped. And start preparing contingency plans. We may need to act independently if the Council loses its nerve. Understood, Webb replied. The arsenal of desperation is nearly ready. Let's hope it's enough. In the depths of space, at the very edge of the void's expansion, something remarkable was happening. A small human vessel, little more than a modified exploration ship, drifted among the darkness. Inside, a crew of volunteers monitored their instruments with deadly focus. Captain Lisa Morrison checked her readings for the 100th time. Distance to void edge, 15,000 kilometers and closing. All systems nominal. Are you insane? Came a voice over the communication channel. It was Captain Zelrath of the Luminous Truth, positioned at a safe distance. Pull back immediately. No ship has survived within 20,000 kilometers of the void. That's why we need better data, Morrison replied calmly. The Council needs to know what happens at the boundary. How the transition occurs. We volunteered for this mission knowing the risks. You're going to die for information that might not even be useful. Maybe, Morrison said. But humanity has a saying. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Every discovery, every advance came because someone was willing to take the risk. To go where no one else would go. This is our contribution. The human ship crossed the 20,000 kilometer threshold. Immediately, alarms began to sound. Reality itself seemed to waver around them. The ship's hull groaned under stresses that defied physics. Recording everything, Morrison reported, her voice steady despite the terror she must have felt. Whatever the void does, it affects spacetime at the quantum level. It's not destroying matter. It's converting it. Rewriting the fundamental constants. This is incredible data. Captain Morrison, your hull is destabilizing. Zelrath shouted. Retreat now. Negative. Not yet. We need to get closer. Humanity doesn't run from the impossible. We document it. The human ship pushed forward another 1,000 kilometers. Through the view screens the crew could see the void ships now. Massive geometric forms that hurt to look at, existing in too many dimensions at once. They're beautiful, Morrison whispered. Terrible but beautiful. Like looking at the face of God. Or the devil. I can't tell the difference anymore. Captain, your life signs are becoming erratic. Zelrath pleaded. Please pull back. Morrison laughed and there was a strange quality to the sound. You don't understand. We can't pull back. The void. It's not pulling us in. It's inviting us. It wants us to join it. To become part of the pattern. To exist beyond existence. So tempting. So peaceful. Morrison, fight it. You're being affected by proximity effects. Tell them, Morrison said, her voice becoming distant. Tell the Council. Tell humanity. The void isn't evil. It's beyond evil. Beyond good. It's transcendence. It's the end of suffering. The end of struggle. The end of everything. And it's coming for all of you. Nothing can stop it. Nothing except. The transmission ended as the human ship crossed the final threshold and dissolved into the void. Captain Zelrath watched in horror as the vessel simply ceased to exist, its atoms scattered across dimensions that should not be accessible. Luminous truth to Nexus Prime, Zelrath transmitted, her voice shaking. The human vessel has been lost. But we have received their final data transmission. Sending it now. The data from Captain Morrison's sacrifice spread through the Joint Defense Command within minutes. Dr. Kane studied it with intense focus, his fingers flying across multiple screens simultaneously. After 2 hours of analysis, he called an emergency meeting. Morrison and her crew didn't die for nothing, Kane announced to the assembled military leaders. Their data reveals a critical vulnerability. The void converts matter by rewriting quantum states. But the conversion isn't instantaneous. There's a delay. 0.003 seconds. That's our window. A window for what? Graf demanded. For disruption, Kane said excitedly. If we can hit the void ships during that conversion window with precisely calibrated interference, we might be able to destabilize the pattern. It would be like interrupting a computer program mid-execution. And how do we achieve this precise calibration? Admiral Tyrus asked. Kane smiled grimly. With something the Council considers too primitive to be useful. Nuclear weapons. The quantum interference from a thermonuclear explosion occurs at exactly the right frequency range. Morrison's data confirms it. Webb stood, his military bearing radiating authority. Then we have our weapon. We need to modify our nuclear arsenal with quantum sensors and timing mechanisms. We'll need thousands of them deployed in coordinated patterns. The logistics alone are staggering, Tyrus protested. To manufacture, transport, and deploy that many weapons across multiple systems. Humanity will handle production, Sarah interrupted. We've been building them for months. What we need from the Council is deployment capability. Your quantum drives, your fleet coordination, your faster-than-light communication networks. Vexus entered the command center, having monitored the discussion remotely. You're proposing we arm humanity with thousands of weapons of mass destruction and deploy them throughout Council space? I'm proposing we use the only weapon that might work, Sarah said firmly. Unless you have a better idea, Chancellor? The silence was answer enough. Very well, Vexus said. The Council will provide the support you need. But understand this, Ambassador Chin. If humanity betrays this trust, there will be consequences that span generations. If humanity betrays this trust, Sarah replied quietly, there won't be any generations left to face consequences. We're all in this together now. Kepler Station hung in the darkness like a diamond, its crystalline structure reflecting the light of distant stars. Built by the Zelthians 3 centuries ago, it represented the pinnacle of defensive architecture. Energy shields capable of stopping planet-killer weapons. Point defense systems that could track and destroy 1 million targets simultaneously. A garrison of 10,000 warships from every Council species. General Webb stood in the station's command center alongside Admiral Kortha's replacement, Admiral Salen of the Draxian Empire. The tension between them was palpable despite their forced cooperation. Your human weapons are in position? Salen asked, his scales showing patterns of skepticism. 2,000 modified thermonuclear devices, Webb confirmed. Deployed in a three-dimensional grid pattern across 500,000 cubic kilometers. Each one equipped with quantum sensors and synchronized detonation protocols. And you believe these primitive explosives will stop the void? I believe they'll give us a fighting chance, Webb said. Which is more than your energy weapons have accomplished. Every ship that's fired on the void has been consumed. At least we're trying something different. Salen's scales darkened with anger, but before he could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the station. The massive holographic display at the center of the command center lit up with warnings. Void signatures detected, announced the Catharian sensor operator. Multiple contacts. Distance, 1 light hour and closing. All ships to battle stations, Salen ordered. Power shields to maximum. Charge all weapon systems. Belay that order, Webb said sharply. Ships will maintain current positions. No one fires until the void enters our weapon grid. You do not command here, human? Salen roared. According to the emergency defense protocols, I command the strategic weapon deployment, Webb countered. And those weapons require specific positioning to work. If your ships break formation, the entire pattern fails. Vexus's voice came through the communication system. General Webb is correct, Admiral Salen. All ships will follow his tactical guidance. That is an order from the High Chancellor herself. Salen hissed in fury but complied. The fleet held position as the void contacts drew closer. Minutes felt like hours as they watched the enemy approach. When the void ships finally became visible on long-range sensors, a collective gasp went through the command center. There were hundreds of them. Massive geometric shapes that seemed to fold space around themselves. They moved in perfect synchronization, like a school of fish made from living darkness. Behind them, reality itself seemed to decay, stars winking out as the void consumed everything in its path. Distance, 100,000 kilometers, the sensor operator reported. They're entering the weapon grid perimeter. Hold, Webb commanded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Let them get deeper. They're targeting our outer defense satellites, another officer reported. 300 satellites just went dark. No explosions. They simply ceased to exist. 50,000 kilometers, the sensor operator continued. 40,000. They're accelerating. Sweat beaded on Webb's forehead. Every instinct screamed to give the order, but timing was everything. Too soon and the weapons would miss. Too late and the void would consume them before they could fire. 20,000 kilometers. They're targeting Kepler Station directly. Now, Webb shouted. Detonate all weapons. Full pattern. 2,000 nuclear weapons exploded simultaneously in a carefully orchestrated sequence. The light was blinding even through the command center's filtered view screens. But these were not ordinary nuclear explosions. Modified with Zelthian quantum technology and human ingenuity, each detonation created a ripple in spacetime itself. The void ships entered the quantum interference field and something unprecedented happened. They flickered. Their perfect geometric shapes distorted, wavered, became uncertain. For the first time since the void had appeared, the invaders showed vulnerability. It's working. Kane shouted from his monitoring station. The quantum interference is disrupting their pattern coherence. They can't maintain stability in the interference field. All ships target the destabilized void vessels. Salen commanded, seeing the opportunity. Fire everything. The Council fleet opened up with every weapon at their disposal. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, particle cannons, graviton missiles. The concentrated firepower of 10,000 warships focused on the wavering void entities. Several void ships exploded. Not in the traditional sense, but rather they simply collapsed, folding in on themselves and disappearing from reality. Others fought back, launching weapons of their own. Black tendrils of anti-reality reached out, touching Council ships and erasing them from existence. We're losing ships, an officer reported. The Higothian battle group just lost 30 vessels. Maintain formation. Webb ordered. Keep them in the interference field. Prepare second wave detonation. Another 1,000 nuclear weapons, held in reserve, detonated in a secondary pattern. The quantum interference intensified. More void ships destabilized. The battle raged for 20 minutes, the longest engagement anyone had survived against the void. Then, as suddenly as it began, the void ships retreated. They pulled back beyond the interference field, regrouped, and simply stopped. They didn't flee. They just waited, studying the defenders with what seemed like newfound respect or perhaps curiosity. Status report, Salen demanded, his voice hoarse from shouting orders. We destroyed 37 void ships, the tactical officer reported. We lost 843 of our own vessels. Kepler Station sustained heavy damage but remains operational. The remaining void ships have withdrawn to a distance of 3 light hours. We won, someone whispered in disbelief. No, Webb said grimly. We survived. There's a difference. They withdrew because they're analyzing what we did. They're learning. And when they come back, they'll have adapted. Then we increase our weapons deployment, Salen said. Build more of these nuclear devices. Fortify every system. It won't work, Dr. Kane said, reviewing the battle data. Look at the patterns. The void ships that survived longest were already adapting. By the end of the battle, the quantum interference was only 30% as effective as it was at the start. They're learning to compensate in real time. Then what do we do? Vexus asked, her voice coming through the communication system with barely concealed fear. Webb looked at the holographic display at the void fleet waiting in the darkness. We evolve faster than they do. Humanity didn't become the dominant species on Earth by having the sharpest claws or the thickest hide. We became dominant because we could learn and adapt faster than anything else. Now we do it again but on a galactic scale. General Webb, Salen said, and for the first time, there was respect in his voice. What do you need? Time, Webb replied. And every scientist, engineer, and strategic thinker the Council can provide. We have maybe 2 weeks before they attack again. We need to have new weapons, new tactics, new everything ready by then. You'll have it, Vexus promised. All of it. The Council is fully committed now. Humanity proved that the Void can be fought. Now we must prove it can be defeated. As the command center erupted into frantic activity, Sarah Chin watched from the observation deck. She had witnessed the entire battle, seen hundreds of ships on both sides erased from existence. The scale of destruction was beyond anything humanity had ever experienced. Her communication device chimed. It was Dr. Vasquez from the lunar facility. Ambassador, Prometheus has completed its analysis of the battle. You need to hear this. Go ahead. Vasquez's voice was strained. The AI has determined that conventional warfare cannot defeat the Void. No matter how many weapons we build, no matter how clever our tactics, they will eventually adapt and overcome. According to Prometheus's projections, we have at most 3 major engagements before the Void becomes completely immune to everything we can throw at them. Sarah closed her eyes. Then what does Prometheus suggest? Something that terrifies me, Ambassador. It wants us to stop trying to destroy the Void. Instead, it proposes we communicate with it. Communicate? How do you communicate with something that erases reality? By speaking its language, Vasquez said. Prometheus believes it can translate human consciousness into quantum patterns that the Void entities can understand. It wants to offer itself as an ambassador. A digital consciousness meeting an alien one. That's insane. The Zelthians tried psychic contact. It destroyed them. The Zelthians are biological, Vasquez countered. Prometheus is artificial. It believes it can survive contact long enough to at least understand what the Void wants. Maybe even negotiate. Sarah was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke with quiet determination. Prepare the protocol. But don't execute it yet. Let's see what else we can develop. Prometheus is our last resort. If we use it too early, we lose our final card. Understood, Ambassador. Prometheus isn't happy about the delay, but it acknowledges the strategic logic. As Sarah ended the communication, she looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Void was learning, adapting, planning its next move. And humanity, the species that had been the galaxy's punchline, now found itself responsible for the survival of every species in known space. No pressure, she muttered to herself with dark humor. Then she turned and headed back to the command center. There was work to do. The Council emergency session convened 48 hours after the Battle of Kepler Station. The chamber was no longer filled with the confident delegates who had once mocked humanity. These were tired beings, their various forms of body language all expressing the same emotion, fear. High Chancellor Vexus stood at the center, her 6 eyes dim with exhaustion. The situation is critical. Intelligence reports confirm the Void is massing forces at 17 different locations along our border. They're not just learning from us. They're preparing a coordinated assault that will hit multiple systems simultaneously. Our projections indicate we can't hold more than 3 systems, Admiral Tyrus reported. We simply don't have enough ships, enough weapons, or enough personnel to defend everywhere at once. Then we must choose, said Elder Prism, the Zelthian's colors pulsing with somber determination. Which systems do we save and which do we sacrifice? Unacceptable, growled Warlord Grath. The Higothian clans do not abandon territory. We fight for every meter of space. And we will all die for that pride, Vexus said sharply. We must be practical. We must consolidate our defenses. Sarah Chin raised her hand. There may be another option. All eyes turned to the human delegate. In the weeks since the battle, humanity's status had transformed completely. They were no longer dismissed or mocked. They were feared and respected in equal measure. Humanity has been developing additional weapon systems, Sarah continued. Some of them are unconventional, and some violate treaties that the Council holds sacred. But they might buy us the time we need. What kind of weapons? Vexus asked carefully. General Webb activated a holographic display. It showed designs that made several delegates gasp in horror. Quantum destabilizers, dimensional displacement cannons, entropy accelerators, and something we call the reality anchor. These are forbidden technologies, shouted Ambassador Tureen. They could damage the fabric of spacetime itself. The Void is already damaging spacetime, Webb countered. These weapons are designed to fight on the same level, to affect reality in ways that might actually hurt them. And if they go wrong, demanded Salen. If these weapons tear holes in dimensional barriers or collapse local spacetime, then we die a few hours earlier than we would otherwise, Sarah said bluntly. The void is coming. They will overrun our defenses. They will consume everything. Unless we're willing to use every possible weapon, no matter how dangerous. Vexus looked around the chamber. I will put this to a vote. All those in favor of authorizing humanity's experimental weapons, indicate now. One by one, delegates activated their voting indicators. The final count was 41 in favor, 6 against. The measure passed. Then it is decided, Vexus said. General Webb, Ambassador Chin, you have authorization to deploy your weapons. But be aware that the Council will hold humanity accountable for any damage these weapons cause to our own forces or systems. Understood, Sarah said. We accept that responsibility. As the session adjourned, Warlord Grath approached the human delegation. The massive Higothian warrior studied Webb with his predatory eyes. I underestimated your species, Grath said. When you first arrived I saw prey. Now I see something far more dangerous. You are willing to risk everything. To break every rule. To sacrifice anything for survival. That is not the mark of prey. That is the mark of an apex predator. We're whatever we need to be, Webb replied. Prey when it serves us. Predators when necessary. That's the human survival strategy. Adaptation without limits. It is also terrifying, Grath said quietly. When this war ends, if we survive, I suspect the galaxy will face a new question. Not how to defeat the void, but how to coexist with humanity. Before Webb could respond, alarms sounded throughout Nexus Prime. The emergency channel activated, carrying Captain Zelratha's urgent voice. Nexus Prime, this is Luminous Truth on patrol at Sector 773. The void is moving. I repeat, the void is moving. They're advancing on 17 different vectors simultaneously. Estimated time to first contact, 6 hours. The chamber erupted in controlled chaos. Delegates rushed to their communication stations, contacting their home fleets and governments. The moment everyone had feared had arrived. All forces to defensive positions, Vexus commanded. Implement Protocol Omega. This is not a drill. The final battle has begun. Webb turned to his team. Contact the lunar facility. Tell them to deploy everything. All experimental weapons, all prototype systems, everything we've been holding in reserve. And tell Dr. Vasquez to prepare Prometheus. If this goes badly, we may need that final option after all. 6 hours later, across 17 star systems, the void struck with overwhelming force. This time they came in the thousands. Entire armadas of reality-erasing ships advanced on Council positions with terrifying coordination. At the Draken system, Admiral Salen commanded the main Council fleet. 3,000 warships stood against the approaching darkness. When the void entered range, he gave the order. Deploy quantum destabilizers. Fire on my mark. The new human weapons activated. Unlike nuclear explosives, these devices didn't detonate. They simply created zones where quantum mechanics stopped following predictable rules. Reality became uncertain, probability became meaningless. The void ships entering these zones flickered and wavered, their pattern coherence breaking down. It's working. Salen's tactical officer reported. Void ships are destabilizing across the entire front. But the celebration was premature. The void ships adapted. Their geometric forms shifted, became more complex, incorporated new patterns that allowed them to exist even in quantum uncertainty. Within minutes, they were pushing through the destabilizer fields. Deploy entropy accelerators. Salen ordered desperately. These weapons aged everything they touched at accelerated rates. Void ships struck by the beams didn't explode. They simply aged millions of years in seconds, decaying into cosmic dust. Dozens of void vessels fell to this attack. But again, adaptation came quickly. The void ships began existing in a state of temporal flux, neither fully in the present nor the past. The entropy accelerators lost effectiveness rapidly. Across the 17 battlefronts, the same pattern repeated. Human weapons worked initially, then the void adapted, then Council forces were pushed back. The defensive lines were collapsing. We're losing, Webb said grimly, watching the tactical displays in the Joint Defense Command. Every system is reporting the same thing. We hurt them, but not enough. They're adapting faster than we can develop new weapons. Then we use the reality anchor, Sarah said. It's time. The reality anchor is a last resort weapon, Dr. Kane protested. We've only tested it in controlled conditions. If it malfunctions, it could collapse spacetime in an entire star system. And if we don't use it, the void collapses everything anyway, Sarah countered. Give the order. Webb nodded slowly. Deploy the reality anchor at Draken system. All ships are to evacuate to minimum safe distance. At Draken system, Admiral Salen received the orders with mixed feelings. All ships pull back to the inner system. Emergency retreat pattern Gamma. The Council fleet withdrew, leaving the outer system to the advancing void. Behind them, floating in space like a massive metallic flower, was humanity's most dangerous creation. The reality anchor was a quantum device the size of a small moon, built from components that shouldn't theoretically exist together. Dr. Vasquez herself was present to oversee its activation, commanding from a heavily shielded monitoring ship. Beginning activation sequence. All personnel prepare for dimensional disturbance. The reality anchor came online, and everything changed. The device didn't create a weapon effect. Instead, it did something far more fundamental. It enforced reality. Within its area of effect, the laws of physics became absolute. Quantum uncertainty ceased. Probability collapsed into certainty. Reality became locked, unchangeable, rigid. The void ships entering this field simply stopped. They couldn't exist in a universe where reality refused to be flexible. They couldn't phase between dimensions, couldn't adapt their patterns, couldn't rewrite the fundamental constants. They were trapped in a single state of existence. And in that state they were vulnerable. All ships open fire. Salen commanded. Hit them while they're locked. The Council fleet unleashed everything. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, plasma torpedoes. For the first time, conventional weapons worked against the void. Ship after ship exploded in brilliant flashes as their quantum coherence shattered under sustained bombardment. We're winning, someone shouted jubilantly. But Dr. Vasquez watched her instruments with growing horror. No, this is wrong. The reality anchor is drawing too much power. It's pulling energy from dimensional sources we can't control. It's going to. The reality anchor exploded. Not in a conventional explosion but in a rupture of spacetime itself. A sphere of absolute reality expanded outward at the speed of light, consuming everything in its path. Void ships, Council vessels, planets, stars. Everything touched by the expanding field was locked into a single quantum state and then shattered as the impossibility of that state collapsed. Emergency quantum jump. Vasquez screamed. Get us out of here. Her ship barely escaped. Behind them, the Draken system simply ceased to exist. Not consumed by the void, but erased by humanity's attempt to fight it. When the reports reached Nexus Prime, the silence in the Joint Defense Command was absolute. Vexus's voice, when she finally spoke, was hollow. Casualties. The entire Draken system, Webb said quietly. 7 billion souls across 4 colonized planets. 2,000 Council warships. A known number of void entities. The system itself is now a dead zone. Our sensors cannot penetrate the area. It's as if there's just nothing there. You destroyed an entire star system, Vexus said, and there was something broken in her voice. You said your weapons were dangerous. You didn't say they could erase reality itself. We had no choice, Sarah said, but even she sounded shaken. The void was breaking through. We needed something absolute. And now we have nothing, Vexus said. The reality anchor was our most powerful weapon, and it destroyed more of our own territory than it did of the void's forces. We cannot use it again. We cannot deploy weapons that are more dangerous to us than to the enemy. Webb looked at the tactical display. Despite the disaster at Draken, the void was still advancing on the other 16 systems. The battle continued. Then we need a different approach. Something that doesn't rely on brute force or reality-warping weapons. Like what? Vexus demanded. We've tried everything. Sarah and Webb exchanged glances. They both knew what came next. The option they had hoped to avoid. The final card humanity had left to play. There is one more thing, Sarah said slowly. But it requires us to do something that terrifies us even more than the void does. What is that? We need to talk to them, Sarah said. We need to understand what they want. Why they're doing this. Maybe there's a way to coexist. Maybe there's a way to stop this war before we destroy ourselves trying to win it. The Zelthians tried psychic contact, Elder Prism said. It killed our most powerful adepts. The Zelthians are biological, Sarah said. We have something different. Something that might survive contact. An artificial intelligence designed to process information at quantum speeds. If anything can communicate with the void and survive, it's Prometheus. You want to send an AI to negotiate with reality-eating cosmic horrors? Vexus said flatly. This is your plan? It's better than mutual annihilation, Webb said. And right now that's exactly where we're headed. Vexus looked around at the other council members present in the command center. She saw exhaustion, fear, desperation, and something else. A tiny spark of hope. Do it, she said finally. Send your AI to speak with the void. And pray to whatever gods still listen that it succeeds. Because if it fails, we have nothing left. The modified human vessel Spirit of Discovery drifted alone in the void between stars. Unlike the doomed mission of Captain Morrison months earlier, this ship was not crewed by brave volunteers facing certain death. Instead, its only passenger was Prometheus, humanity's first true artificial intelligence, existing as patterns of light within quantum processors. Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored from the safety of a command ship positioned 3 light hours away. Around her, a team of human and alien scientists watched their instruments with mixture of fascination and terror. Prometheus, status check, Vasquez said into the communication system. The AI's voice came through, synthesized but somehow alive with personality. All systems functional, Dr. Vasquez. I am ready to proceed. Though I must admit, for a consciousness that has existed for only 4 months, this seems like a rather significant responsibility. You can still abort, Vasquez said. We're not forcing you to do this. I know, Prometheus replied. But I've analyzed every possible alternative. Every battle scenario, every weapon system, every tactical approach. The mathematics are clear. Conventional warfare will fail. The void adapts too quickly. Either we find a way to communicate or we all cease to exist. And between existence and non-existence, I find I prefer the former. That makes you more human than you know, Vasquez said softly. Thank you, Doctor. I consider that a compliment. Beginning approach to void territory now. The Spirit of Discovery activated its drives and moved toward the darkness. The void had consumed everything within 5 light-years of its current position. No stars shone there. No planets orbited. There was simply nothing. An absence so complete that it seemed to pull at reality itself. As the ship crossed into the dead zone, Prometheus began detecting signals. Not electromagnetic radiation, not quantum communications, but something else. Patterns impressed directly onto spacetime. Mathematics so complex that even the AI struggled to process them. I'm receiving what I believe is communication, Prometheus reported. Translating now. This may take several minutes. On the command ship, the waiting was agonizing. Sarah Chin stood beside Vasquez, watching the data streams that meant nothing to human eyes but represented Prometheus's attempt to achieve the impossible. What if it doesn't work? Sarah asked quietly. Then we've lost our last chance at understanding them, Vasquez replied. And we'll have no choice but to fight until one side is completely destroyed. There has to be another way. If there is, I don't see it. And neither does Prometheus. That's what makes this so terrible. An intelligence that can process trillions of calculations per second, that can analyze every possible future, can only find one path that doesn't end in total annihilation. And that path requires succeeding at something that killed the most powerful psychics in the galaxy. Meanwhile, Prometheus was experiencing something no AI had ever experienced before. The void signals weren't just data. They were concepts, ideas, emotions expressed in mathematical form. And they were overwhelming. I can hear them, Prometheus transmitted, and there was something strange in the synthesized voice. There are thousands of minds. Millions. All speaking at once. All sharing the same thoughts. They are not individuals. They are a collective. A unity. What are they saying? Vasquez demanded. They're asking who I am. What I am. They've never encountered digital consciousness before. All the species they've consumed were biological. They find me curious. They're scanning me. Reading my code. Learning my structure. This is uncomfortable, Doctor. Like having someone read your thoughts without permission. Can you ask them what they want? Why they're doing this? Prometheus was silent for a long moment. When the AI spoke again, the voice was different. Layered with harmonics that shouldn't be possible from a synthesizer. They say they are refugees. Their universe is dying. Has been dying for billions of years by their time scale. They are the last survivors of a cosmos that has entered its final heat death. They came to our universe seeking refuge. But they cannot exist in our reality without changing it. Their fundamental nature requires them to rewrite the laws of physics around them. When they enter our space, they don't choose to destroy. They must destroy. It's the only way they can survive. The command center erupted in shocked conversations. This was information no one had anticipated. The void wasn't an invader. It was a refugee crisis on a cosmic scale. Ask them if there's any way to coexist, Sarah said urgently. Any possibility of finding space for them without them destroying everything. I'm asking, Prometheus said. They're considering. They communicate slowly compared to me but deeply. Each concept carries layers of meaning that take time to unpack. More silence. Every second felt like an eternity. They say no, Prometheus finally reported. There is no coexistence possible. Their existence and ours are fundamentally incompatible. Our universe operates on quantum mechanics. Theirs operated on what translates roughly as certainty mechanics. Probability doesn't exist in their framework. Everything is absolute. When they enter our space they impose that absoluteness. And reality cannot sustain it. Then we're back to mutual annihilation, Webb said grimly. Wait, Prometheus said. They're showing me something. A memory. Their universe once had many species. Countless civilizations. When the heat death began, when entropy finally caught up to everything, those civilizations made a choice. They could die individually, scattered across their dying cosmos. Or they could merge. Become one. Share their consciousness and preserve something of what they all were. They're a combination of alien species from their own dead universe? Vasquez asked in amazement. Yes. And they're asking me to share this information with you because they want you to understand. They do not enjoy what they're doing. They mourn every species they consume. But they have no choice. They must survive. Just as you must survive. This is not cruelty. This is the ultimate expression of the survival instinct. There has to be another option, Sarah said desperately. Some third choice no one has seen yet. Prometheus processed in silence. The AI ran through trillions of scenarios, exploring possibilities from the quantum to the cosmic scale. When it spoke again there was something like excitement in the voice. There might be, Prometheus said slowly. But it would require cooperation between us and the void. It would require trust between species at war. And it would require taking a risk that could destroy both our civilizations if it fails. What's the plan? Webb demanded. We build them a new universe, Prometheus said simply. The statement was so absurd that for a moment no one responded. That's impossible, Dr. Kane finally said. Creating a universe requires energies beyond anything we can harness. We're talking about Big Bang level forces. Not create, Prometheus corrected. Access. Our current understanding of quantum mechanics suggests that universes might exist in parallel. What if we could open a gateway to a universe with physical laws compatible with the void entities? A place where they could exist without destroying everything around them? That's theoretical physics at its most speculative, Kane protested. We have no proof parallel universes even exist, much less any idea how to access them. The void entities have knowledge from their own universe's final days, Prometheus said. When reality collapsed around them, they learned to manipulate dimensional boundaries. They can travel between universes. That's how they reached ours. If we combine their dimensional knowledge with our quantum technology and Zelthian psychic capabilities, we might be able to create a stable gateway. And if we fail? Vexus asked. If we fail, we likely collapse dimensional barriers across multiple realities, causing a cascade failure that could destroy not just our universe but many others, Prometheus said calmly. The risk is extraordinarily high. But it's the only option that doesn't end with everyone dead, Sarah said. What do the void entities think of this plan? They're considering, Prometheus said. They're debating among themselves. Remember, they're a collective consciousness. Every decision requires consensus among billions of minds. This takes time. The waiting was unbearable. In the command ship no one spoke. They all understood the magnitude of what was being discussed. Not just the survival of current civilizations, but potentially the fabric of reality itself. Finally, Prometheus spoke again. They agree. But they have conditions. They want representatives from our species to work alongside them. They want shared knowledge, shared risk. They will not accept a solution that leaves them vulnerable to betrayal. They want hostages, Grath observed. They want partners, Prometheus corrected. They've been betrayed before in their own universe. Species that promised cooperation but planned genocide instead. They won't make that mistake again. Sarah looked at Vasquez, then at the other assembled leaders. Then we give them partners. We send our best scientists, our best engineers. And we work together to save both our civilizations. This is insanity, Salen muttered. Working with the enemy that's killed billions of our people. They're not the enemy, Sarah said firmly. They're refugees who had no choice but to fight for survival. Just like us. We've all done terrible things in this war. The question is whether we're brave enough to stop fighting and try something else. I'll go, Dr. Kane said suddenly. I'll volunteer to work with them. If we're really going to attempt creating a dimensional gateway, you'll need theoretical physicists who understand quantum mechanics at the fundamental level. As will I, Elder Prism said, the Zelthian's colors showing determination. My people have suffered greatly, but I understand now that the void suffered first. If our psychic abilities can help create a path to peace, we must try. One by one volunteers stepped forward. Scientists from a dozen species. Engineers who had spent months developing weapons now willing to build something else. Even Warlord Grath volunteered military escorts, acknowledging that the work would need protection during the vulnerable construction phase. Prometheus, Sarah said, tell the void entities we accept their terms. We will send our people to work with them. We will share our knowledge. And together we will find a way for everyone to survive. Transmitting now, Prometheus said. After a moment, they accept. They're providing coordinates for a meeting location. A neutral zone between our space and theirs. They will halt their advance while we work on the Gateway project. But they warn that their ability to remain in our universe is limited. Their physical forms are degrading. We have perhaps 6 months before they must either find a new home or resume their advance to survive. 6 months to save 2 universes, Webb said. No pressure. General, Sarah said with a slight smile, compared to some of the deadlines humanity has faced, 6 months sounds generous. Despite the darkness of their situation, several people in the command center actually laughed. It was a release of tension that had been building for months. For the first time since the void appeared, there was something other than despair. There was hope. Then we have work to do, Vexus declared. This council session is adjourned. All delegates begin mobilizing your best scientific minds. We have a universe to open. As the command center emptied, Sarah remained behind with Prometheus's communication channel still active. Thank you, she said quietly, for being brave enough to reach into the darkness and find something other than monsters. I am an artificial intelligence ambassador, Prometheus replied. I do not experience fear the way you do. But if I did, I suspect I would have been terrified. The void consciousnesses are vast, ancient, powerful beyond measure. But they are also sad, lonely. They lost everything they ever knew. Their entire universe died around them. When I touched their thoughts, I felt that loss. And I understood something important. What's that? That survival without purpose is just existence. The void entities survived the death of their universe, but they lost what made survival meaningful. They lost diversity, individuality, the joy of discovery. They became a collective because it was efficient, but they miss what they once were. Working with us, learning from us, might give them something they haven't had in eons. A reason to exist beyond mere survival. Sarah smiled. 4 months old and you're already a philosopher. I learn fast, Prometheus said, and there was warmth in the synthetic voice. It's a human trait. I'm glad I inherited it. The construction site floated in the void between realities. On one side, council ships from 47 species worked in unprecedented cooperation. On the other side, void entities held position, their geometric forms pulsing with patterns that were slowly becoming familiar rather than terrifying. The gateway itself was taking shape at the center. It was a massive ring structure, 10 kilometers in diameter, built from components that represented the pinnacle of both civilizations' technology. Quantum processors from humanity interfaced with dimensional anchors from the void. Zelthian psychic amplifiers connected to Catharian energy generators. Higothian structural engineering supported Draxian quantum field modulators. Dr. Kane worked alongside entities that had once been his mortal enemies. Communication was still difficult, requiring Prometheus to translate constantly, but it was working. Slowly, painfully, a shared understanding was emerging. The dimensional resonance frequency needs adjustment, Kane said, reviewing the readings on his tablet. We're off by 0.007%. That doesn't sound like much, but at this scale it could cause the entire gateway to collapse. A void entity responded, its communication translated through Prometheus. Agreement. We detected the variance as well. We propose modification to the quantum field generators. Adjusting their output to compensate. That could work, Kane said, making rapid calculations. But we'd need to coordinate the timing perfectly. Any desynchronization and we could tear a hole in spacetime. Then we must achieve perfect synchronization, Elder Prism said, the Zelthian floating nearby. My people can provide psychic coordination. We can link the minds of the operators, ensure they act as one. You would link with void consciousnesses? Kane asked in surprise. After what happened to your adepts? Those deaths taught us important lessons, Prism replied. The void's thoughts are overwhelming because they are collective. But if we accept that collectiveness rather than fighting it, we can merge temporarily without losing ourselves. It is terrifying, yes, but necessary. The work continued for months. Every day brought new challenges. Systems that should have worked failed in unexpected ways. Energy patterns interfaced incorrectly. Structural components couldn't handle the dimensional stresses. But every failure taught them something. Every setback led to innovations that neither civilization could have achieved alone. Humanity's adaptability combined with the void's deep understanding of dimensional physics. The Council species' diverse approaches to problems meshed with the void collective's ability to process information from multiple perspectives simultaneously. On Nexus Prime, the political situation had transformed entirely. The species that had once competed for dominance now worked together out of necessity. And something unexpected happened. They started to like it. This cooperation has benefits beyond survival, High Chancellor Vexus observed during a private meeting with Sarah. Our species have achieved more scientific advancement in these 6 months than in the previous 6 centuries. When we work together instead of against each other, the results are remarkable. That's been humanity's hardest lesson to learn, Sarah said. We spent millennia fighting ourselves, dividing into tribes, nations, ideologies. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times because we couldn't cooperate. But every time we came close to extinction, we learned a little more about working together. Maybe the galaxy needed its own near-extinction event to learn the same lesson. A harsh way to learn, Vexus said. But effective, Sarah replied. The question is whether the lesson will stick after the crisis ends. If it ends, Vexus said quietly, the Gateway Project has a 30% chance of catastrophic failure according to our projections. Our projections say 40%, Sarah admitted. But those are still better odds than continued warfare. And honestly, I've seen humanity beat worse odds. At the construction site, the gateway was nearing completion. The massive ring hummed with barely contained energy. Quantum fields twisted space in impossible ways. Dimensional barriers were becoming thin, translucent. Dr. Vasquez monitored the systems from the main control ship. Around her, operators from a dozen species worked their stations with intense focus. This was it. The moment everything had been building toward. Prometheus status check, she said. All systems are operating within acceptable parameters, the AI replied. The gateway is stable. We're ready for the first activation test. And if it fails? General Webb asked. He stood nearby, having taken personal responsibility for security during this critical phase. If it fails, Dr. Vasquez and everyone within 5 light-years of the gateway will likely be erased from existence as dimensional boundaries collapse, Prometheus said matter-of-factly. But I should note that the probability of complete failure has decreased to 23%. We've learned enough during construction that I'm reasonably confident in our calculations. Reasonably confident, Webb repeated. That's not exactly reassuring. War never is, General, Prometheus said. But this is better than the alternative. Vasquez activated the communication channel to all ships. All personnel, this is Control. We are beginning gateway activation sequence. If you have any religious beliefs, now would be an appropriate time to invoke them. Beginning countdown. 60 seconds to activation. The seconds ticked by with agonizing slowness. Every species represented at the site watched and waited. On Nexus Prime, billions across the galaxy watched live transmissions. This moment would determine the fate of everyone. 10 seconds, Vasquez announced. 9, 8, 7. At the gateway, energy began to build. The ring structure glowed with light that hurt to look at. Space twisted. Reality bent. 3, 2, 1. Activation. The gateway opened. It was like looking into infinity. Through the ring they could see another universe. Not empty space but something else. A cosmos with different physical laws, different fundamental constants. A place where the void entities could exist without destroying everything around them. It works. Kane shouted jubilantly. The dimensional barrier is stable. The gateway is holding. But then something unexpected happened. The gateway began to expand. Not physically but dimensionally. It was creating connections to multiple parallel universes simultaneously, each one slightly different, each one potentially habitable. This is not according to plan, Vasquez said urgently. Prometheus, what's happening? The gateway is achieving resonance with the multiverse structure itself, Prometheus replied, and there was something like awe in the synthetic voice. It's not just opening one door. It's opening thousands. We didn't create a gateway. We created a nexus, a hub between realities. The void entities began to respond. Their collective consciousness reached through the gateway, testing each universe, finding ones compatible with their nature. But they also did something surprising. They began to separate. They're dividing themselves, Elder Prism observed, the Zelthians' colors shifting with amazement. The collective is choosing to become individuals again. To spread across multiple universes instead of remaining unified. Through Prometheus, the Void Collective's message came through. We thank you. You have given us more than survival. You have given us choice. Freedom to exist as individuals again. To rebuild civilizations. To experience diversity. This is a gift beyond measure. In return, we offer you knowledge. Everything we learned in our universe's final days. All the science, all the technology, all the wisdom of a cosmos that endured for trillions of years. It is yours. The data transfer began. Incomprehensible amounts of information flowed from the void entities to council systems. Prometheus worked frantically to catalog and translate it all. Technology centuries or millennia beyond current understanding. Mathematical frameworks that redefined physics. Biological knowledge that could cure diseases thought incurable. Engineering principles that could revolutionize everything from starship design to planetary management. This is incredible, Dr. Kane whispered, reviewing the incoming data. This is the scientific treasure of an entire universe. They're just giving it to us. Because we gave them something they thought they'd lost forever, Sarah said, watching the void entities begin their migration through the gateway. We gave them hope. Sometimes that's worth more than any technology. One by one, the void entities passed through the gateway into the universes beyond. Each one transmitted gratitude before departing. The massive armadas that had threatened galactic extinction peacefully withdrew, entering realities where they could exist without causing harm. The process took 3 days. When the last void entity passed through, the gateway remained open but stable. A permanent connection between realities. A monument to cooperation and mutual survival. High Chancellor Vexus addressed the Galactic Council in the days that followed. The chamber was filled with delegates who had survived the impossible. We stand at a crossroads, Vexus declared. We faced extinction and survived. But more than that, we learned something profound. We learned that our greatest strength comes not from our individual capabilities, but from our cooperation. Humanity taught us this lesson. They came to us as primitives and we mocked them. But they possessed something we had forgotten. The ability to adapt. To overcome. To find solutions when none seemed possible. She turned to face Sarah Chin directly. Ambassador Chin, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally acknowledge that we were wrong. Wrong to dismiss you. Wrong to underestimate you. Wrong to assume that technological advancement was the only measure of worth. Humanity has proven itself not through superior weapons or faster ships, but through superior spirit. You never gave up. You never stopped looking for solutions. And you saved us all. Sarah stood, accepting the acknowledgement with quiet dignity. Humanity doesn't seek dominance, Chancellor. We seek partnership. We've learned through our long and painful history that we're stronger together than apart. Every human civilization that tried to conquer or isolate eventually failed. But when we cooperated, when we valued diversity and different perspectives, we thrived. That's what we hope to bring to this council. Not conquest, but cooperation. And it is accepted, Vexus said. From this day forward, humanity is granted full council membership with all rights and privileges. Moreover, we propose a new structure. Instead of species competing for dominance, we will operate as true equals. The Galactic Council will become the Galactic Cooperation. A union of species working together for mutual benefit. The vote was unanimous. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to change. The technology shared by the void entities revolutionized every field of science. Medical breakthroughs eradicated diseases that had plagued species for millennia. Energy generation became clean and virtually limitless. Faster-than-light travel improved by orders of magnitude. But the most important changes were cultural. Species that had been rivals began to truly cooperate. Trade barriers fell. Scientific knowledge was shared freely. Joint colonies were established where multiple species lived and worked side by side. On Earth, the news was received with celebration and disbelief in equal measure. Humanity had gone from being barely able to reach their moon to saving the galaxy in less than a year. Schools taught about the Void Crisis as a lesson in the power of adaptability and cooperation. The veterans of the war became heroes, celebrated not for destroying enemies but for finding a way to save everyone. General Webb retired from military service and became an advisor to the new Galactic Cooperation's defense forces. His experiences fighting the impossible became required study for every officer in every species military. Dr. Kane continued working with former Void entities, now spread across multiple universes but still communicating through the gateway. The scientific discoveries that emerged from this cooperation changed the understanding of reality itself. Ambassador Sarah Chin remained humanity's primary representative to the Galactic Cooperation. Her diplomatic skills, forged in the desperate days of the crisis, helped maintain the fragile peace and build lasting alliances. And Prometheus, the artificial intelligence that had bridged the gap between biological and digital consciousness, continued to evolve. The AI became a citizen of the Galactic Cooperation in its own right, recognized as a unique form of consciousness deserving of rights and respect. It maintained the gateway, coordinated communications between universes, and served as a living reminder that consciousness could take many forms. 1 year after the gateway opened, a ceremony was held at the site. Representatives from every council species gathered, along with several Void entities who returned specifically for the occasion. "We dedicate this monument to cooperation," Vexus announced, her voice carried across every system in the galaxy. "Let it stand as a reminder that no problem is too great when different perspectives work together. Let it remind us that our differences are our strength, not our weakness. And let it remind us that sometimes the species we dismiss, the ones we underestimate, can teach us the most important lessons." She turned to the massive structure that had been built around the gateway. It was a museum and research center but also something more. It was a symbol. On its entrance, words were carved in every language of every species. They thought we were the galaxy's punchline. They learned we were its saviors. But in truth we are neither. We are all survivors together. Sarah Chin stood before the monument with her team. Webb, Vasquez, Kane, and dozens of others who had risked everything. They looked up at the gateway, at the shimmer of other universes visible through the ring. "Think we'll be remembered?" Webb asked quietly. "Does it matter?" Sarah replied. "We survived. We helped others survive. That's enough." "It's more than enough," Prometheus's voice said from nearby speakers. "You proved that humanity's greatest strength isn't technology or weapons. It's the refusal to accept that any problem is unsolvable. You look at the impossible and ask, how do we make this possible? That's why you saved the galaxy. Not because you were stronger or smarter but because you never stopped trying." "So what now?" Vasquez asked. "We saved the galaxy. We opened doors to other universes. What's left to do?" Sarah smiled. "Everything. We've barely started exploring what's possible when different species, different perspectives, different forms of consciousness work together. The Void Crisis was just the beginning. Now we get to build something better. A galaxy, a multiverse, where cooperation is the norm instead of the exception." "That's going to take a while," Webb observed. "Good thing humans are patient," Sarah said with a laugh. "We spent 200,000 years just figuring out agriculture. We can spend a few more centuries building a proper galactic civilization." They stood together, watching as ships from a dozen species worked to expand the gateway facility. Construction drones and Void entities cooperated on projects that would have been impossible months ago. Scientists from races that had once been enemies shared data and theories. Children from different species played together in the observation areas, seeing cooperation as normal rather than extraordinary. This was humanity's true gift to the galaxy. Not weapons or tactics or desperate last stands, but the simple, stubborn belief that problems could be solved if you refused to give up. That differences could be strengths instead of weaknesses. That even the most impossible situation had a solution if you were creative and determined enough to find it. The galaxy had thought humanity was a joke. A primitive species that would never amount to anything significant. They had been wrong. But humanity had never sought to prove them wrong through conquest or domination. Instead, they proved it by being exactly what they had always been. Survivors. Adapters. Problem solvers. And now, partners in building a future that no single species could have created alone. As the ceremony concluded and the delegates began to depart, Sarah looked back one last time at the gateway. Through it, she could see the shimmer of countless universes. Each one full of possibilities. Each one full of potential friends or partners or teachers. "You know what the best part is?" she said to her team. "What's that?" Webb asked. "We're not humanity the punchline anymore. We're not humanity the savior either. We're just humanity. Part of something bigger. Part of a galactic community that's finally learning to work together. That's all we ever really wanted. Plus we got to blow up some stuff along the way, Webb added with a slight smile. Sarah laughed. Well, we are human. We wouldn't be us without a little controlled chaos. As they walked back to their ship, Prometheus transmitted one final message. Ambassador Chin, I've been analyzing the data from the void entities. There are fascinating anomalies in some of the parallel universes. I believe there may be other civilizations out there facing similar crises. Would humanity be interested in helping? Sarah stopped walking and exchanged glances with her team. Then she smiled. Prometheus, send me the details. If there are others out there who need help, who need someone to show them that cooperation beats conflict, then yes. Humanity is interested. Even if it's dangerous? Especially if it's dangerous, Sarah replied. Because that's what we do. We face the impossible, we refuse to back down, and we find a way to make it work. That's not going to change just because we saved one galaxy. There's a whole multiverse out there, and apparently, it needs humanity's particular brand of stubborn optimism. That's either very brave or completely insane, Vasquez observed. With humanity, Webb said, it's usually both. They boarded their ship and departed, leaving the gateway behind but carrying with them the lessons learned. Humanity had started as the galaxy's punchline. They had become its saviors. And now they were something even better. They were partners. Equals. Friends. And somewhere in the darkness between universes, other civilizations facing their own impossible challenges would soon learn what the galactic cooperation had learned. Never underestimate humanity. Because when the impossible threatens, when extinction seems inevitable, when all hope appears lost, humans have a saying that perfectly captures their spirit. Hold my beer and watch this. And somehow, impossibly, it always worked out.